Good day and welcome back to Laura Reports. Today we're going to be talking about tariffs, Trudeau, and taxes on tips. Oh my! First, we're going to start off with something a little bit lighter. The Grammys happened recently, a week ago today. Today the Super Bowl is happening, and if anyone doesn't know who I'm cheering for, go Taylor Swift's boyfriend. Can't wait to see what she's wearing to the Super Bowl. Although there is kind of a conspiracy theory. The last game that made the Chiefs go into the Super Bowl, people were like, were the refs bought off? Conspiracy. If anyone knows more about that, please comment below because I'm dying to know. So watch the Super Bowl. Let me know how everything goes. I overly don't care. I'm just there for the fashion, as I am for lots of things. As I was for the Grammys. The Grammys was super entertaining. If you didn't see on my Instagram, I always do a fashion police judgment. I wish you could have seen that, but stories lasts only 24 hours, so I hope you got a chance to see my roasts, my toasts, and who shouldn't have been able to walk down the red carpet, i.e. lots of them, including Bianca Censori. What the hell is going on with people these days? This woman showed up to the red carpet literally naked. Literally. I don't get it. Like, if you see the video, I don't think she's like being held hostage as people think like that's what's going on. I actually don't think that's what's going on. I think that this woman is completely in her right mind in that way. She chose to be with Kanye West. I think that Kanye West has slowly descended into madness, just like the Grinch, and he's found someone, his little madness soulmate in Bianca Censori. I think that they are just vying for attention. They want to shock and awe people, and that's exactly what happened. They shocked. They didn't they went which is exactly what I did, because it's just, for something like the Grammys should be something that you could watch as a family. For someone to just roll up to a red carpet naked is just, something's got to be wrong upstairs, you know? Like, let's not go that way in our lives, you know? There's a lot of really great Grammy performances. Chappell Roan was amazing. Her voice live is next level. Sabrina Carpenter, so great. I think she's just the most beautiful girl ever. And my cat is like scratching behind this thing, so sorry. We're just gonna let her go to town. And she had this bit that she got from Goldie Hawn where she descends down the stairs and then like ends up going underneath the stairs and then grabbing it and going on top. I think that was so adorable. Her dancing was amazing. Love her. I'll put a little clip here.
I can't relate to desperation. My give a damns are on vacation.
So cute, right? But the awards were completely different from what I had thought. I had it in my mind that I knew exactly who was going to win everything. And I did think Beyonce was going to win Best Country Album. I know a lot of people are in arms about that. The only reason I think that might not be like fair is because Beyonce had 72 writers on that album. 72. There's usually like on Billie Eilish's, it was 2. She had 2 writers, her and her brother. On Taylor Swift's that she won last year, there was 5 writers. 72 seems like crazy. And it looks very obvious, the fact that she won Album of the Year. And it was like last year where Jay-Z was like, it's ridiculous that Beyonce hasn't won Album of the Year. And then this year she wins Album of the Year. I just think that's a little sus, you know, but I am not a member of the Beehive. Please don't come after me. Like, that's not me at all. So who knows? Shakira, there was lots of talk of like DEI and trans issues and stuff, which is completely apparent because the entire Hollywood is completely left wing, and it's such like an echo chamber. I feel like if 78 million people voted for Trump and the Hollywood media is very much like trans people aren't invisible. Of course they're not invisible. They're everywhere. They're like 0.3% of the population and they are everywhere. if you haven't heard my stance on trans, love it. You want to be trans? Have at her. You do you. Go girl, go boy, don't care, as long as you're an adult. If you're 18, you do you. And I think that it's interesting that like Lady Gaga and Chapel Roan on the carpet or when they're accepting their award are like, trans people do exist. They aren't invisible. It's like, yeah, we know. We've seen nothing but trans issues for the last 4 years. Like, of course they're not invisible. Of course they exist. There's so much legislation right now, like in the Biden administration, that has helped the LGBTQ plus IA alphabet mafia in so many ways, and it's just so in our face all the time. It's never been so apparent. They've never been so open and everything like that. I just find it interesting that people choose to use their platform to be like, they're not invisible. Yeah, obviously. They're everywhere. Also, Shakira dedicating her award to immigrants. Don't conflate illegal immigration with legal immigration, because legal immigration is great. All countries need legal immigration, and they do. They need it. And I think it's an excellent program to bring people in for asylum seeking or for a better life from wherever or for whatever reason. Families together, amazing. Legal immigration. My boyfriend's from England. He is a legal permanent resident here. I think that's fantastic. It's illegal immigration that's being an issue, and a lot of these people are pedophiles, murderers. Like in the second White House briefing recently, Katrina, is that her name? Gosh, I can't remember her name. I really liked her. Like, she's so good. She's just so on it. She was going on about other people who've been arrested. In my last episode, I talked about people that ICE have arrested, and I have another list for you. On January 27th, ICE arrested a man in Chicago who was charged with solicitation to meet a child. On January 28th, ICE arrested a North Korean man in Atlanta who was in possession of child pornography. On January 28th, ICE New York arrested a Mexican man for attempted murder. On January 28th, ICE Philly arrested a citizen of Mexico with possession of child porn. I find it fascinating that, like, I've been kind of trepidatiously posting on very highly liberal Canadian people's Facebook posts. Like, I have a bunch of people on my Facebook who are like, Trump's a bad orange man, he's such a racist, he's such a bigot, he's such, and I have a video on like why Trump won and debunking all of those things, because there are so many examples as to why Trump is not a racist, why Trump is not a bigot, why Trump is not a misogynist. And a lot of those you can just poke holes in. And again, 78 million people voted for this man. And so I've been tentatively posting on these people's posts, just giving them facts and information. And the amount of angry backlash and wrong facts or stats that people give me in return. Like, there's this guy who was talking about how when they're arresting all of these immigrants, they're creating concentration camps. One in Guantanamo Bay. Like, that's just absolutely... I'm so sorry, I have to go get my cat. Hey! It'll be really nice having a studio one day where I have no cats around, because this is just where I am. Like and subscribe, guys, so I can get myself a studio one day. It's also interesting to me that a lot of these people who are saying that they're turning Guantanamo Bay into concentration camps for all the illegal immigrants, like, oh my, it's the Holocaust all over again, are the same people who are like, free Palestine, and yet Palestine is against Jewish people and the Holocaust was against Jewish people. So how can you like compare the two? Like, it's the amount of times I say mind-boggling in these episodes is I need to learn a couple new words to express the same sentiment, because it's going to happen a lot, which is why I've started filming this, because the unreasonability of people paying attention to facts that aren't facts and not actually doing their own research properly is mind-boggling. I'm going to post this video from, if you don't follow Northern Perspective, you should. It is a conservative YouTube channel about Canadian politics, and I posted this the other day.
There's this thing called video, and then there's this other thing called the internet. When you put them together, you can fact check anything that you say.
So in the second press briefing, Caroline, I believe her name is, was talking about the airplane crash on Wednesday evening. They were receiving updates as recovery efforts were ongoing. Trump addressed the nation and signed an immediate memorandum to address and assess the Federal Aviation Foundation and to immediately review hiring and changes over the last 4 years. If you didn't see that, it was so funny. One reporter was like, "Are you going to be going and visiting the crash site?" And he was like, "What, the water? You think I'm going to go to the water?" That was way more New York than he is, but I need to work on my Trump impersonation. She also said the Senate has confirmed eight of Trump's nominees, and we expect the Senate to quickly continue confirming his nominees. On Friday, he signed the Laken Riley Act into law, surrounded by her family. This mandates the federal detention of illegals accused of theft, burglary, assaulting an officer, or any crime that causes injury. This is the first piece of legislation that Trump has signed into law this term, which I find that's so nice. Like the Laken Riley Act, I think that's so important because Laken Riley died because of illegal immigration. And this is what people voted for. I also see a lot on the internet memes or whatever that's like, oh, all of these Trump supporters, they're getting exactly what they voted for and now they regret it. No, they're getting exactly what they voted for. The amount of information that Doge has come out with that has been spent from the government is crazy. I'm going to read just a couple of these things. USAID has been funding U.S. mainstream media. BBC, New York Times, Politico. The USAID Inspector General warned that USAID has been sending money to terror groups in the Mideast. One analyst found $164 million sent to extremists and $122 million to terror groups. There are pictures of this. There are pictures of a bunch of terrorist group with USAID stuff behind them. USAID funneled $27 million to Black Lives Matter. I have a personal vendetta against Black Lives Matter because I donated lots of money twice to Black Lives Matter, and from my research, none of that went to helping Black families. A lot of that went to the founder of Black Lives Matter, who ended up buying, I believe, 3 mansions from the money that they got from that organization. Other things, this is interesting, actually. This is because all of this money is being found by USAID to be going to like $100 million to create an Israeli Sesame Street. I'm going to find another list for you. But the Trudeau Liberal Foreign Spending Minister, Melanie Joly, has been spending money overseas. $1,700 on the musical Lesbian Pirates, $7,500 on a DEI music festival in Estonia, $13,000 on an Oscar party in Los Angeles, $8,800 promoting a show called Whose Jizz Is This? Okay, and this is from the Doge official Instagram account. 10 most wasteful 2021-2022 grants. 1. A steroid-enhancing hamster fights, $3 million. 2. Cocaine experiments on beagle puppies, $2.3 million. 3. Studying parrot romances, $689,000. 4. Studying racial aggression in mice, $519,000. 5. Training mice to binge drink alcohol, $1.1 million. 6. Encouraging Ethiopians to wear shoes, $2.1 million. 7. Verifying that kids love their pets, $187,000. 8. Studying social life and collective intelligence of ants, $675,000. 9. Studying Russian cats walking on treadmills, $2.7 million. 10. Studying the effects of cocaine on quail sexual behavior, $875,000. This is next level, guys. Musk exposes $100 billion in annual entitlement payouts to individuals without IDS. It was also found that there was money given to George Soros. There was also a list on Joe Rogan of about 10 things deep that was like $10 million given to Nicaraguan transgenders, $20 million given to, like, the amount of fraud is unbelievable. There you go, a new word for mind-boggling. And anyone that can back up, like, the administration from here on, like the Biden administration, is just wrong. Is just wrong. The fact that we have proof now that there was legitimate fraud, financial fraud, millions of dollars going to fraudulent things, and no one can back up the Biden administration at this point in time. They are using their own. And how much of that money do you actually think is going to creating an Iraqi Sesame Street? That sounds like money laundering to me. Actually, there was apparently $8 million who went to Chelsea Clinton's wedding. Why are taxpayers paying for Chelsea Clinton's wedding? And for someone, I think it's really important for people to be able to change their minds. I was very liberal for a very long time. I believe that gay people have the right to exist and have the right to marry. I believe in abortion up to a certain extent. I don't think you should get an abortion at 9 months. I believe in transgender lives. I believe in no hate. I believe in no racism. And yet, there are so many people who look at what is going on right now and they say, if you support Trump in any way, you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're a sexist, you're a misogynist, and that just isn't the case anymore. That just isn't the case. They're looking at him and saying he's Hitler, and yet Obama is laughing with him at Johnny Carter's funeral. Like, this isn't translating, and it's time that we wake up so we can work together, especially in Canada, guys. Especially in Canada, we are going to get effed on these tariffs. So, okay, let's talk about these tariffs. So, probably about a week and a half ago, Trump announced that there was going to be a 25% tariffs put on Canada and Mexico. And I'm pretty sure that Trudeau, it was early February 2025. The imposition of taxes on imports from Canada, Mexico, and China, citing concerns over illegal immigration and drug trafficking into the United States. The proposed tariff includes a 25% levy on all goods from Canada and Mexico, with a reduced 10% tariff specifically on Canadian energy imports, such as oil, natural gas, and electricity. Chinese imports were subjected to a 10% tariff. So those tariffs were set to take effect on February 4th. However, following negotiations, President Trump agreed to a 30-day pause. I think a huge part of this is because of the Alberta Prime Minister, whose name I can't remember at the moment, but I really like. So we're going to take a 30-day pause after both countries pledged to enhance their border enforcement measures to curb illegal immigration and drug trafficking. So the announcement of these tariffs have led to immediate discussions about potential economic impacts, including increased consumer prices and challenges for businesses. The response from a lot of Canadians, including family of mine, have been, buy Canadian. That's not a response. The response is change government. Because Trudeau got us into this mess. Trudeau has not watched the border. There are fentanyl factories all over Canada, all over Vancouver. The amount of drugs that are being made in Canada under our very noses and brought across the border is exactly why this is going on. And who allowed that to happen? Trudeau. Why did Trudeau allow that to happen? I think because they want to lower the socioeconomic status of Canadians so that they're dumb and drug-addled and cannot vote him out of power, and he will get more power. He was he implemented something like 30 safe injection sites. Why are we spending Canadian dollars for safe injection sites? There are so many social programs to help people. I'm 12 years sober. I know there are so many social programs to help people out of addiction. Helping them put drugs into their body is not one of them. Not. It is not one of them. There is science to back this. And these safe injection sites are going beside schools. That means druggies, for lack of a better term, are getting close to elementary schools. They're getting close to parks. There are parks around Vancouver that you cannot go to anymore because they are full of druggies and homeless people. And I think this is the Canada that Trudeau is allowing to happen. We need to get him out. So people are talking about Carney, right? So Mark Carney is the leading person for who's going to take over the Liberal Party. So I didn't know anything about Mark Carney, but Mark Carney is what I have found out to be like a Liberal Hail Mary. Okay, so he's a Canadian economist and a politician who was the 8th governor of the Bank of Canada and the 120th governor of the Bank of England. He was the chair of the SSB, which is the Financial Stability Board. He worked at Goldman Sachs, the Department of Finance Canada. He was also the UN Special Envoy for Climate Action and Finance, which is our first red flag. Climate action and finance. And it's interesting because in my first episode, I talked about climate change. And the minute I said climate change on YouTube, a little flag appeared underneath my video that said something about climate change, misinformation. Make sure you know about climate change. Climate change is real. I never once said that climate change isn't real. Climate change is a natural occurrence in life. It's just like the whole world goes through these cycles. An ice age, this, blah, blah, blah. Climate change is natural and real. The amount of climate change that humans have incurred on their own is not scientifically provable at all. It is not scientifically provable that Canadians, human beings, have negatively affected the world by even a degree. That is not scientifically probable. Is it good for us to recycle? Yes, but recycling is actually a fucking lie. If you've looked into recycling, they don't actually recycle all of the things that you recycle. They recycle a tiny portion of it. If you're not a conspiracy theorist by now, then you're not listening. Even if Canadians lowered their emissions by 1%, the amount of emissions given off by the rest of China alone, the rest of the emissions given off by China alone negate our emissions massively. So why are we spending millions, if not billions of dollars to lower our emissions when it would be better off for us to clean our oceans? That money would be better off to clean our oceans and stop mass farming of our seas. So what we do is when we fish our oceans, you take one big giant net underneath the boat. This is the boat, this is the net. You go, and they take everything from the ocean in that net. Everything. Every fucking fish, everything it could possibly get in that net. They bring the net on board and then they take what they want and they leave what they don't. And they end up raping and pillaging the ocean of natural things that we don't end up using. We just take the things that we want and the things that we can sell and we leave the fucking rest. It's as bad as shark fin soup, where they cut off the fins of shark and throw them back in the ocean. That's as bad as it is. That's a good place to start if you want to help the climate. So Mark Carney, he is a climate action guru. He actually wrote a book. I'm going to talk about this book here in a second. So he resigned from all the positions in 2025 because he is taking over for Trudeau. He became a special advisor and a chair of the Liberal Task Force on Economic Growth in 2024. He has done a shit job of that. He advised Trudeau on COVID-19 economic response, which, if you remember, the Canadian COVID-19 economic response was to hack into people's bank accounts that were supporting truckers not getting vaccinated. This is a whole other bag of worms. COVID ruined a lot of people's lives. It almost ruined mine because I was double vaxxed. I've had COVID 7 times. It has made me, I used to never get sick. I had the best immune system in the world. I never, ever, ever got sick. Now I'm sick every couple of weeks. I'm just getting over being sick. I was sick for 3 weeks. And that's because of the COVID vaccine. Someone I love very, very dearly, the minute they got the COVID vaccine, they got tinnitus in their ear and just constant ringing in their ear. Constantly. Someone else I know lost their hearing. Like, people have died from the COVID vaccine. And truckers lost their jobs because they wouldn't get vaccinated. I wouldn't have gotten vaccinated if I didn't have to work on set as an actor and to travel, which I needed to do both of those things in order to have a livelihood. And I had to get the COVID vaccine. So, and it was interesting because when I work at a restaurant, and when COVID was going on and everyone had to wear masks and you had to check people's vaccinations at the door, our staff didn't have to be vaccinated, and yet everyone who walked in the restaurant had to be vaccinated. So the hostess at the front door, I remember this girl, never got vaccinated, and she was checking people's vaccine cards to get in the door. How does that make sense? So Carney, he helped Trudeau on the COVID-19 economic response, which will tell you the type of man that Carney is. After Trudeau's resignation, Carney launched his own campaign for the Liberal leadership days following Trudeau's resignation and has been described as the leading candidate. From what I read, Carney hasn't lived in Canada for very long. He lived in Europe. And the Bank of England did not do well under his rule. He's known for printing vast amounts of money, and he was forced to resign. Carney advocates a technocratic, highly regulated economy that amounts to state capitalism. It's hard to imagine that any significant easing of Liberal climate actions if he's the leader. He's like, we're going to get rid of the carbon tax. No, they're not. They're going to change it. Carney wrote a book. So more than likely, we could expect that there would be an escalation of policies and he would phase out oil and gas. If anyone knows anything about the Canadian economy, we need oil and gas. Our country is rich of oil and gas and minerals and stuff that will help our economy. And we have not even scratched the surface in order to get those things. He's done more thinking and writing about climate change than the rest of the Trudeau caucus combined. In 2021, Carney published a book called Values. This book devotes whole chapters to climate change. He believes that the world economy, and certainly Canada's, must be transformed as quickly as possible to avert the collapse of civilization. Carney will not change his views on climate change. He can't. He wrote it all down in excruciating detail. He would look like the biggest liar and hypocrite ever. He literally wrote this 600-page tome with huge sections about climate change. And now he's talking about getting rid of the carbon tax. Nay, you hypocrite, you liar. We know you're a huge advocate for climate change because you wrote it all down in a book called Values, which means those are your values. So this week, Carney got the Environment Minister, Steve Guilbeault's, I actually don't know how to pronounce this guy's last name, Guilbeault's endorsement. This minister acknowledged for the first time that carbon tax is unpopular and will have to go. Carney welcomed Guilbeault's backing, but didn't bet much on the carbon tax. Instead, he praised it lavishly. So this guy, Stephen Guilbeault, is an absolute manic. He's been arrested, I think, 2 or 3 times for protesting about climate. I'm pretty sure he strapped his body to the top of a building about climate. This guy is kind of a psychopath, honestly. I'm going to put this clip in here about what I learned about him.
That I will be offering my support to Mark Carney. I've known Mark for many years. We've worked together on issues of green energy, transition. It's the right thing to do. The consumer component of our carbon pricing system is a good policy, and it's a policy that works. Most Canadians are better off with carbon pricing than without carbon pricing. He's the right person to help bring us into the next phase.
But more importantly, with Trump in power, investment dollars will take a real quick look at us here in Canada and they will turn south. So Carney's policies, difficult at the best of times, they could further fuel our economic disaster. Carney may be under investigation for housing purchasing via a banking institution that's currently under review by an ethics board. So Canadian Conservatives oppose the idea of Mark Carney for several reasons. His Liberal affiliation. So Carney has openly aligned himself with the Liberal Party. He's been rumored to be Justin Trudeau's successor, and he's pretty much Trudeau 2.0. You have to keep in mind that Trudeau was just kind of a figurehead. So there was 1,000 people. He's been in power for 9 years. He hired people that were yes men that said yes to him. So the whole party is full of all of these idiots who have created where we are now in our economy. Canada as a whole is poorer than the poorest state right now. 1 in 4 children go to school hungry. 1 in 4 people have to go to a food bank every week. We need to change this, which is why Trump was in power. People look at Pierre Poilievre and go, he's Trump 2.0. Okay, so let's think about why we hate Trump. He's a misogynist, he's a racist. Is he? Give me examples. I will debunk almost every single one. And not only that, people make mistakes, you know? If Trump 15 years ago said something about grabbing a woman by the pussy, that's not good. Absolutely not. Have I said something probably equally as crass when I didn't think I was being recorded, talking to like someone at a restaurant, talking about something to do with being really rude about a man's body? Probably. Have you done it? Probably. Do I hear it still on a regular basis within a restaurant? Absolutely. Absolutely I do. And if you don't understand that people are going to learn their lessons and become better people, if you don't think that the Trump now is different than the Trump in 2016, you're not looking at all. I'm a different human being. I'm 38. Who I was when I was 24, 22. I sold drugs when I was 22. I slept with a gun under my bed when I was 22. I am 38. I am 12 years sober. I am a good human being. And it took me a lot of work to get here. And if we don't forgive people for shitty things that they said or semi-shitty things that they did, take a look at yourself in the mirror. How good are you? Another reason that people might not want Carney. He's a globalist. Carney is a former governor of the Bank of Canada and the Bank of England, as well as a key figure in international financial institutions like the UN and the WEF. Some conservatives are really skeptical of the globalist elites and see him as an out-of-touch international technocratic class. Why is he running? Why do people like this run? He was a banker. I'm guessing money. Trudeau is worth, I think, 3 million, 30 million, something like that. Hey, Google, how much money is Justin Trudeau worth? It says he's worth about $5 million, but another thing I'm looking at says he's worth about $30 million. He gets paid about $300,000 a year. That doesn't work out. Dude has to pay his rent. He has kids. He has an ex-wife. I guarantee you he's paying her spousal support or alimony. Where is that money coming from? He built a barn on his land worth $8 million that the taxpayers paid for. $8 million barn. Do you think that barn actually cost $8 million? I think that's laundered money. Carbon tax and climate policies. So Carney's a strong advocate, as we talked about, for climate policies, and I really think that that hurts the economy compared to oil and gas. Concerns over economic policies. Some conservatives blame central banking policies, such as a low interest rate, easing under Carney's tenure and contributing to inflation. Bottom line, the economy is not going to get better under Carney. The economy will get better under Poilievre, but there are so many liberals who do not want to vote Poilievre because they have Trump derangement syndrome. And they look at Poilievre and go, conservative, he must be Trump. And Trump is a bad man, so we can't vote in Poilievre. Have you listened to Poilievre speak? His wife is an immigrant. He's common sense. We need to get out of this. Like, my boyfriend and I want to get out of Canada because the economy is so bad and we make good money and we're struggling. And I see people all the time everywhere in Canada struggling. Food prices are going up, gas prices are going up, house prices are going up. People my age don't dream about having a house anymore because they can't. We need to get these people out of leadership. Are you with me? Okay. Oh my God, the RFKJ hearings. I don't think we've talked about this, but people look at RFKJ and think he's anti-vaccine. And he said probably about 5 times during his hearing, I'm pro-vaccine, I'm pro-vaccine, I'm pro-science, I'm pro-science. 2 things I want to look at. Elizabeth Warren. when she was talking to RFKJ.
Will you also agree that you won't take any compensation from any lawsuits against drug companies while you are secretary and for 4 years afterwards?
Well, I'll certainly commit to that while I'm secretary. But I do want to clarify something because you're making me sound like a shill.
I'm asking about fees from suing drug companies. Will you agree not to do that?
You're asking me to not sue drug companies,
No,
and I'm
you
not
can
going to agree
sue
to that,
drug
Senator.
companies as much as you want.
You're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
No, kids might die, but Robert Kennedy can keep cashing in.
Senator, I support vaccines. I support the childhood schedule. I will do that. The only thing I want is good science.
I think people like Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders, you cannot look at them and not think that they are dinosaurs at this point in time. The amount of money that have gone to both of those people, and they're just like, I haven't gotten money from the drug companies. I haven't gotten money from the drug companies. The lies that are just now being caught out, especially with Doge going into all of the money that you said has spent over the years.
Now you're coming before this committee and you say you're pro-vaccine. Just want to ask some questions. And yet your organization is making money selling a child's product to parents for $26, which casts fundamental doubt on the usefulness of vaccines. Can you tell us now that you will, now that you are pro-vaccine, that you're going to have your organization take these products off the market?
Senator, I have no power over that organization. I'm not part of it. I resigned from the board.
That was just a few months ago. You founded that. You certainly have power. You can make that call. Are you supportive of this?
I've had nothing to do with leadership.
Are you supportive of these onesies?
I'm supportive of vaccines.
Are you supportive of this clothing, which is militantly anti-vaccine?
I am supportive of vaccines. I will. I want good science, and I want to protect.
But you will not tell the organization you founded not to continue selling that product. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So CBC, in a recent press interview, asked Pierre Poilievre if he would be stepping aside during the next election. What an idiotic question. Why would you ask him that? He's literally the conservative leader. And this is CBC. This is a journalist asking the leader of the opposition to step aside. Your politics are showing, my dear. So he said, "We are not going to suspend democracy. Canadians will decide their next prime minister. Thank you very much." That same CBC journalist complained about being pushed out because other journalists were allowed to ask questions first. So what I've gathered in these press briefings is that all of these legacy media places, just like in the White House, how they're bringing in a bunch of new journalists, Canadians are also doing that. So there were all of these other new journalists, and the CBC journalist was complaining because the new journalists, the not as good journalists, were allowed to ask questions first. I found two quotes that I think are very important about Pierre Poilievre. One, he says, quote, "When I'm prime minister, no laws or rules will be passed that restrict women's reproductive choices, period." Done. Period. And that's on cap. Man, is my millennial showing? I don't even know if I used that right. He also said, quote, "Same-sex marriage is legal and will remain legal when I am prime minister. Full stop." So people can stop panicking about women's abortion issues and gay issues, because he has said that time and time again. So Trump was in the same CBC interview on the same day, not the exact same interview. They weren't side by side. But when we were talking about the tariffs and enforcing the border, Trudeau said that we have all the tools we need to deal with. You need a vote. So he's talking about there's $1.3 million that have been allocated to do something about the border, but you need a vote to use that $1.3 million to do something about the border. And he's prorogued the government, so they can't get the vote on. So they asked Trudeau about Trump, saying that the tariffs are about the border and fentanyl. And Trudeau said, "We have one of the most secure borders in the world. Less than 1% of fentanyl and legal immigrants come across the border." That's just a flat out lie. I don't understand how this again thing where I just think people are being lied to over and over and over and nobody's catching them on the lie. That's a lie. And when people are catching them on the lie, it's misinformation. All right, I got a couple popcorn bites. So on my first episode, I did a segment on the Pakistani inbreeding gangs. And so I looked into it more to make sure that what I was saying was completely true. It takes a lot of work and effort to like fact check myself before I come here and talk about what's going on. So what I found in Pakistan is that there are severe inbreeding problems. 70% of all Pakistans are inbred. And in Turkey, the amount is between 25 and 30%. Close to half of everybody living in the Arab world is inbred. Close to half of everybody living in the Arab world is inbred. This was a study done in the UK. It is a mind-boggling number. So the BBC revealed that 55% of the Pakistani community living in Britain is married to a first cousin. More stillbirths are among immigrants because of this reason. The Times of India confirmed that this is linked to British Pakistani families because they are 13 times more likely than the general population to have a genetic recessive disorder. What does this tell us? Well, the BBC research also discovered that while Pakistani families only account for 3.4% of all births. So, even though they account for only 3.4% of all births, they account for 30% of British children with recessive disorders and infant mortality rates because of the inbreeding. So they account for 30% of the British children. Those numbers are gigantic. Even though they seem like small numbers, they're absolutely not. So in response to this evidence, a Labour Party MP has called for a ban on first cousin marriage. There is a 100% increase of stillbirths when inbreeding is in account. The closer the blood relative, the higher the risk of mental disabilities and schizophrenia. In fact, research shows that if a child's parents are cousins, the IQ goes down 10 to 16 IQ points. So the risk of having a lower IQ lower than 70, which is technically classified as mentally handicapped, increases 400%. One of the major symptoms of inbred people are irrational rage and fanaticism. So what that's telling me is that there's a problem with the Pakistani grooming gangs. 25 to 30% of Pakistanis are inbred. If there are 10 to 16 IQ points lower within inbreeding, is that there is a huge, massive amount of more mentally handicapped people with symptoms of irrational rage and fanaticism. Just take that in. Just take it in. Let it marinate inside of you. One thing I think is really important is being able to have these discussions with facts. These are facts that I've double checked without looking at me and saying you're a racist. Because this is just a fact that I'm telling you. Right? This isn't a racist thing. I love people. I love all sorts of people. It doesn't matter where you're from. If you're a good person, I respect you. I like you. You're a good person. That's that. This is a fact. So let's be able to talk about facts. And as my good friend Ben Shapiro says, facts don't care about your feelings. One thing that I wanted to talk about for a while, but I never got to, is the Facebook censorship. So Zuckerberg went on Rogan and did like a 2-hour segment on Rogan. And man, is that guy ever a different person these days? Growed out his hair, looks different, dressing different, is now doing jujitsu. Like he is alpha manning up. He was so a beta before. Okay, so in 2021, Facebook started crushing all of the conservative pages, which is why this is coming into play now. So The Daily Wire, which is where Ben Shapiro is, was the biggest Facebook platform page ever before 2021. So the impression on Ben's personal page went from 1 billion to 100 million. That drop is crazy just because Facebook started crushing all of the conservative pages. This is propaganda, guys. This is 100% propaganda. So that was a deliberate move to stifle conservative voices on social media. So things changed in 2026 when Donald Trump became president. Democrats were looking for any excuse as to why Trump won. I mean, it couldn't be that Hillary Clinton was just an absolute terrible candidate who was actually, in fact, a felon. That couldn't be it. Absolutely, it had to be outside forces, that his team had been infiltrated by Russia, which is why people don't want Kash Patel. So I've started reading Kash Patel's book, and it is proof that the Russia hoax was a hoax, that there was monumental FBI deep state movement to destroy Trump, which was still going down. And I think now that it's coming out with Doge and Muset is because they didn't want Trump to come in and see all of their money that is being allocated to, I believe, themselves. It's just being laundered through all of these ridiculous... Why are you spending $100 million on these ridiculous things? There's no way you can spend $100 million on that. That's going in people's pockets. That's going to probably 100 different people who each get $1 million, is my guess. So this turned into a fight in 2016 over censorship. Remember, because there was election disinformation, and then it turned into misinformation. So misinformation has just turned into this blanket statement for anything that people don't like politically. Like, they'll say that to me about things that are facts. They're like, that's misinformation. Actually, it's facts. Like, this was misinformation that Biden was senile, right? They said for years, Biden wasn't senile. That's just misinformation. And now it's turned out that there have been meetings that went on behind the scene, that people came out and said, yeah, we were having meetings behind the scene about what to do about Biden because he was so senile. And then we just had to present this front that that wasn't the case. So there was a huge crackdown on Facebook and Twitter. And still to this day, anytime COVID is mentioned on most social media platforms, a little pop-up, like I said about the climate change, will come up and say, COVID vaccines, blah, 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 information about COVID, blah, 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 blah. I got a text message the other day asking me to get another COVID vaccine. And I was like, how the fuck is this still happening? Like, why am I getting text messages? I saw a billboard on a bus stop the other day that was like, it's really important to get your COVID vaccine. That is misinformation. So Dianne Feinstein was a senator in California, and she started holding meetings, just berating these social media platforms to crack down on misinformation. And if they didn't, the government would. And she started openly threatening shutting down social media sites if they didn't do the Democrats' bidding. So now in 2019, Zuckerberg did a speech at Georgetown University on the importance of free speech. And then COVID happened. And the government pressured Zuckerberg, along with others, to shut down any misinformation. And he did. Which spanned from actual false things stated about COVID to things like that the vaccine didn't stop the transmission of the virus, which turned out to be true. Things like the lab leak theory were shut down at the behest of the government, which now kind of seems to be true. And then they shut down the Hunter Biden laptop scandal. So in 2022, Zuckerberg went on Joe Rogan. He said that the Biden administration yelled and cursed. Sorry, 2022. I'm losing time here. January 10th. In January, somehow. On January 10th, 2025, Zuckerberg orders the removal of tampons from men's bathroom in Silicon Valley, Texas, and New York. So he went on Joe Rogan. He said that the Biden administration yelled and cursed at the Meta team employees to yank COVID and vaccine posts. And when he pushed back, the feds slapped Meta with investigations. So Meta did not do what the government wanted, and they went, okay, here's an investigation. Here's this. Do you want to make it tough to like do your job in this place? Here you go. This is complete irregular government work. Like, people are talking about 1984. Like, this is that. When they are trying to hinder free speech over a lot of things that decided to turn out to be true. So after January 6th, because of the insurrections, they decided to ratchet it up even more. The idea was that Facebook had been responsible for January 6th because people were talking about it. They are after the control of every aspect. So he went as far as to have meetings in the White House, which have been proven about stifling the reach of the Daily Wire while promoting the legacy media. So I'm just very happy that Zuckerberg has decided to implement something like community notes, where people are fact-checking stuff, and free speech is going to continue to be very important. There's a difference between free speech and hate speech, okay? Hate speech sucks. That's dumb. Let's not do hate speech. But free speech is very important. And the fact that Zuckerberg has gone on Joe Rogan to talk about this, to talk about how the Biden administration pressured him, yelled at him, slapped red tape all over him to do their bidding with the Hunter Biden laptop story. The fact that Biden has pardoned his son, Hunter Biden, for I think 10 years. He gave him like a blanket pardon for 10 years. In and itself is enough to tell me that there was some severe wrongdoings going on. And then he, of course, pardoned Fauci, which was too bad because Fauci should be in jail. Okay, last thing we're going to talk about is this weird leftist hashtag being used on social media called cute winter boots. So because they think their information is being censored because they're on the left, so they're using it as code. So they're like hashtag cute winter boots, and they're talking about how to subvert direct orders from the government and radicalized left and protection of immigrants. So this is being used to like update leftists with information. And so they're going into the streets with signs and they're screaming and they're talking about ice cream trucks, which is just ice, like the deportation. They're talking about using secret code because they think they're being censored. And I just find that so funny. Like, we're the ones fighting for free speech here on the right. I guess I've come out, right? Like there's no pulling it back that I support Trump and that I am on the right. And it's scary to me a little bit because I'm an actor, and to be this broad, as I couldn't have done this before because I would have been canceled immediately. And the left has spent so much time trying to get rid of free speech and monitors people's free speech, and then the left is worried about being censored when we're like, we're not going to censor you, have at it, go ahead, say whatever you want. And yet they're like speaking in code. So go look up the leftist hashtag cute winter boots. Enjoy on me. Thank you so very much for joining us again. Really appreciate it. Please like and subscribe. I hope one day to be doing this full time if I'm not acting. I mean, that's my number one. I'd love to be acting, but this has definitely turned out to be something that I very much enjoy. And please comment below if you have anything to say, if you have any facts that I got wrong or want to talk about anything. I'm definitely open to that. I hope to be doing some interviews. I have a trans woman friend of mine who I was thinking, she posted something about going into a woman's bathroom the other day, and this is a probably 50-year-old trans woman who I think if you are presenting as a woman, you should go be able to use the woman's bathroom. I know this person, I trust this person. I think the problem is when there's very obvious men going into bathrooms and assaulting people, and it's one of those things that's verbally a gray area, because I definitely want my friend to have a safe, lovely life because they're a lovely person. And I think it would be very hard to be a trans person in this world, and I know trans people exist and they're definitely not invisible, and I want her life to be as lovely and fruitful as possible, but I also think that on her driver's license it should say man, because she was born biologically a man, and I think that safety comes first when it comes to, like, if someone ever committed a crime, it should say man on their license. And I think that we should just accept trans man or trans woman as what they are. I think there's a biological man and a biological woman, and that's biology. But I think just like sexuality, it's a spectrum. You know, I think biologically it's binary. But because of how they want to present, you can be a trans man or a trans woman. And I think that's enough. If you should be proud to be a trans woman, you should be proud to be a trans man. Like, that's okay. That's a thing. That's allowed. And it doesn't mean that you have to force people to say you're a biological woman, because that's just not the truth. And we want to be in the truth and in reality and accepting other. I think you can be on the right and still accept that there are, you know, people who feel like there should be a woman, but they were born a man, so they are being now a trans woman. And I think that's okay, and I think that's lovely, and I think we need to find some middle ground in order for us all to live together. Rant over. Take care. Be well. Much love. Bye.